Hi, folks, and welcome to another episode of Careers and Coffee. So today I'm absolutely delighted to be welcoming Thomas Driscoll-Evans, who's a fashion designer, to talk to us a little bit more about his career, everything from Suffolk to New York and everywhere in between. So let's welcome Thomas. Thomas,
Hello.
welcome. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Oh, life's good. Life's good. Now, look, I want to get straight into it. Tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Okay, well, as previously mentioned, I'm Thomas Driscoll-Evans, which is a very long name. I'm a fashion designer, and I've been basically working in the fashion industry for 15 years. I was born in Ipswich, but didn't move here until my early 20s for my first ever fashion job, which was designing for merchandising for football clubs all over the world: Olympique Marseille, Real Madrid, Arsenal, etc. So that was the beginning of my career.
That sounds really interesting. Thank you. And yeah, did you always know that you wanted to go into fashion, or was there a moment you thought this is the career for me?
I wish I had a better answer for that one. I went with what I was good at, and I got an A in art. I was very dyslexic. I was really not very good at maths and English and science, but art skills were very high. So I decided to just try lots of different art careers, graphic design, fashion design, 3D, pottery, ceramics, all of those things. And I got the best grade in fashion, and I was like, well, I'll do that then. So I went to do my fashion degree. And I think just a combination of my strong personality, really quite good in the fashion industry, and I guess, yeah, just all that creativity. That's just, I just did it because I was good at it, and I didn't really have that many other choices.
I think that's the best thing to do, though. If you're great at it, why not? And tell us a little bit more about sort of the fashion industry. What's it like working in that?
So the fashion industry is absolutely huge. You can have jobs. There are thousands of different types of jobs. So if you really like fashion or glamour, advertising, photography, there's thousands of different jobs. Being a fashion designer is very surprising. What people think, you throw fabric at supermodels and then stick some pins in it, and then it goes down a runway. People who do that is 0.1% of the world of fashion. What 99% of fashion designers do is very stressful, and it's very hard work. It's a lot of late nights. We work weekends. You try, and some things are the best and the worst. So we got to travel all year round. I've been to Hong Kong, mainland China, Turkey, Portugal, but we're talking like every year for 15 years. And then you get to go on shopping trips, which are amazing to start with. You go shopping in New York, Los Angeles, wherever you can dream of. But then when you're doing it 4 times a year and traveling and working weekends and working till it's a very big job. That's all I say to people when they say, I want to go into fashion. I say, right, what do you think fashion is? Because it's usually they think it's a little bit more light-hearted, airy, fairy fun, and it's a very heavy job. It's a very serious job.
That's really interesting. What does fashion mean to you?
Fashion is obviously a means of expression. It's that's the way I make my money, which is very important. I like anyone who dresses with purpose. I don't have to like what they're wearing. I just have to know that they chose to wear it rather than it was given to them more. I don't think there's good taste or bad taste. Any genre of fashion is just as important as the next. If you want to be a goth or a trendy or whatever the kids call it these days, I think it's all very important. So I think fashion is a way of letting people know who you are without even speaking. It's sort of a form of expression.
Brilliant. Thank you. And have you dressed anyone that people may know?
I have dressed lots of famous people, I suppose. I'm trying to think who's the most relevant people. I've dressed Michael B. Jordan, who is in the Black Panther movies, Chris Hemsworth, who plays Thor, Kit Harrington from Game of Thrones. Yes, thank you for a visual. That's very helpful. Help my memory. Most recently, I was living in New York and I was designing for JLo quite a lot. It was sort of mostly like every day was like JLo, 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 which was really nice. She's a very nice person and looks weirdly young in person. And who else have I designed for that's the good person? I don't know. My favorite person I've ever designed for is Debbie Harry, who was the lead singer of a band way beyond our demographic, I imagine. But maybe ask your parents who Debbie Harry is. I've got a massive picture of her in my spare bedroom.
We can put a link below in the description for anyone.
Yeah, she's in that second picture there, like that. But you can only see her mouth, but she's in there. Yeah.
And it looks like you've worked with lots of different organisations. Tell us a little bit about some of the companies you've worked for.
So I haven't worked for that many. I sort of worked for Adidas to start with. There's a really large part of the fashion industry called, I suppose it's called supplying, where what you do is you work with a factory in another country. So mine was, for instance, in India or in Turkey, and then we design a collection. Then we can go to Topshop, Burton's, Zara, your high street shops, and then they buy the designs from us. So when you go into a shop like Zara, you'll see all these designs. That's not designed by one person. It's designed by like 50 people, and other companies will then sell into that. So I did that job for 1 year, and I was designing for Zara, Massimo Dutti, Burton's, and Debenhams. So when you go into Debenhams, when Debenhams existed, there was something called Designers of Debenhams, which was actually designed by people like me. So that was really interesting. But in my portfolio, I've got all these different designer names, but really you're doing it kind of through an agency. Then I went to All Saints. So I was the senior menswear designer of All Saints for 6 years, which was that slide there. It's very hard to get 6 years of your life onto one slide because 6 years ago, we were designing some horrible things that you would laugh at now. But everything seems really cool at the time. And now we sort of progressed on. If you see the polo shirt, there's a boy wearing a white polo shirt with a match in his mouth. So that polo shirt, for example, I designed 5 years ago, and that's still in store now. That's considered continuity. And if you go into any All Saints shop, you'll see a lot of my work, but it's, from the past, and they just keep coloring it and changing the color. So, I'm quite proud of that. Oh, and that's Shawn Mendes in the middle. I designed that.
I think the demographic would definitely know who he is, or at least I'd like to think so. And how do you decide if something is in style, or sort of you're choosing things? Say, for example, I don't know, let's say I don't know how far in advance you'd work, but how do you then think, okay, this is what people are probably going to want to wear in, I don't know, let's say January next year. How do you do that? Do you do it sort of based on what people are currently wearing and the trends?
Yeah, definitely. We use a lot of social media. Instagram has played a really large part in that. So people who are influencers taking photos of what they wear and posting it, putting clothes together in a new way, putting colors together in a new way. There is a sort of life cycle of vintage. So at the moment you drive down the street and everybody's dressed the way I was dressed when I was 18 and 19. It's sort of that 90s, early 2000s fashion. Actually, I'm older than that. But anyway, when I was 14, 15. So yeah, and there is that life, so you can kind of see that coming round, and in another 10 years time, everyone will be dressing in what people are wearing today. And then, those people will be going, oh, I used to wear that. And it's just that constant life cycle. I was in the pub the other day and I saw somebody who had a mullet and somebody who had curtains on the same table. And I was like, you guys are really mixing your genres. Like, a mullet is 80s and then your curtains is 90s. Like, you two can't exist in the same world. But I love that we do that now. Like, there are no rules.
And for you, where do you draw your own sort of style inspiration from? Are there folks that you've seen dress and you think, I want to take a bit of that? Or is it sort of just all Thomas? Where do you draw your own style inspiration from?
Well, apart from you, Jordan, obviously, I like sustainable fashion. I like to buy vintage clothing. So this jacket's, you know, could be 100 years old. It's got paint on it and it's got holes in it and things like that. And then I buy from small local brands if I can, rather than large fashion corporations. I prefer. Inspiration wise, I have a kind of weird uniform that I picked many years ago. I wear stripes. I can take you upstairs and show you. I've got like a rail of stripy t-shirts. I think if you have a uniform for yourself, you don't have to think about what you wear so much. I definitely used to be trendy. If there was a new trend, I'd have to wear it. Oh, I've got to have that cut of jean. It's skinny jeans. It's wide jeans. It's going to be this. It's going to be that. And I see the kids around today and I'm like, wow, they're so trendy. They're really firing, like hitting those trends, especially in Ipswich and Suffolk, where we're removed from capitals. But one day I just went, do you know what? I'm just going to stick with some really gorgeous, simple basics. And then I can wake up in the morning and I don't have to think. It's just, I'm going to wear that. And I know it looks nice.
And it must have been interesting over the last 12 months, because I think everyone has went from, you know, I suppose making an effort every day for work or whatever you're doing and going out, to what's the comfiest thing I've got in the wardrobe. Has that had a big impact in terms of the fashion industry?
100%. Yeah, really. If you bought stocks and shares in kind of sweatpants, you'd be very rich right now. Yeah, a lot of big fashion brands are sending out sweatpants onto the catwalks. They are a fundamental part of our life now. But the same thing happened with jeans. Nobody wore jeans before, you know, the 1950s. There was you would look absolutely ridiculous wearing denim. Fabrics and the meanings of those can change. Things like, you know, in the 70s, men were wearing skirts and eyeliner, and then we became very masculine. And now we're going back to that Harry Styles wearing a handbag at the Brits yesterday or the day before. So everything has that kind of circle and goes round. It's
that's interesting. Thank you. And we just got a question. So how did you decide which part of fashion you wanted to work in?
Again, this isn't a great answer, but I decided that I didn't want to be a really small fish in a big pond. And I'd looked at the ginormous London universities, like the biggest ones are Central St. Martin's University, for example. That's where all the big fashion names went. And I thought, I'm going to be eaten alive in there. You know, I'm good, but am I like that good? So I decided I was going to do something niche and find a niche and work within that. And it was the best decision I ever made. I honestly think I would have probably gone to London and disappeared, you know, into a cloud of other creative people. So I went to Nottingham University, which was the only university, Nottingham Trent, I should say. And it was the only university at the time that did knitwear design. So I planned to become the first ever very famous male knitwear designer. That was my plan. I am currently probably the only kind of person at my level within my field, but I didn't do knitwear. I went with, like you were saying, casual wear, hoodies, sweatshirts, t-shirts. If you look through my portfolio, most of it's hoodies, t-shirts, graphic prints, and things like that. That was just by nature of design of my life. That wasn't really a choice. I just went with the jobs, and that's what I ended up being. And I'm happy with that. I don't miss knitwear as such. But yeah, that's why I chose to do fashion design, because rather than anything else, because I was just like, let's be niche.
No, that's great. Thank you. And another question. So which A-levels did you take?
I didn't take any A-levels because I was quite dyslexic and I didn't like learning, to be quite honest with you. It wasn't my cup of tea. So what I did was I did my art GCSE. Then I went to Colchester Institute, which I think might have changed its name to like Colchester School of Art and Design or something. But it's basically a very hands-on. I did 2 years. 1 year, you could do every single art course on earth. It's brilliant. You could do anything creative. And then in the second year, you pick one. And I picked fashion just because that was the one I was best at. And you don't need A-levels if you want to go and do that. That is an option. There are people who do A-levels in art or maybe textiles first. Yeah. But most university degrees in fashion expect you to have that foundation. So I kind of saved myself a year, because I would have done 2 years and then a follow-up foundation year. so I kind of just skipped 1 year and went straight to creative, which, you know, I'm very pleased about.
Brilliant, thank you. And another question is, so which school subjects do you use all the time that perhaps you didn't expect to?
That's an absolutely fantastic question, isn't it? Because I think at school, people always say, well, we're never going to use this or whatever.
Yeah.
It's probably true. Some of that's true, I'm sure. I mean, art, I suppose. I mean, I definitely use my art every single day because that's what I do. You can't underestimate being good at maths and English because you use it every single day of your life. Just a basic competency of those things is really fundamental. But you're never too old to learn. I was a terrible writer when I left school. And just within 15, 20 years of being in the fashion industry, writing emails, people tell me all the time, you're a beautiful writer. Yeah, that was really well written. You've really handled that situation well. And I'm like, I just from writing emails, but at school, I couldn't write at all.
Wow. And another question is, so do you have any tips to get into the fashion or get into fashion design as a teenager?
I think being a fashion designer and being a stylist are very similar things. So I think buy clothes, be interested in fashion, buy magazines, look at how, I'm surrounded by every magazine I've ever bought, and I keep them all because I'm a bit of a crazy hoarder. But I can open any one of these, and some of these are so old. I've got some magazines here from like the 1970s.
Wow.
And try new looks, try new shapes. I remember when I was a teenager, I used to put my coats on upside down. You're all going to go try this now. You put your coat so that the body of the coat comes up, and then you kind of have it like this shawl neck thing. And I used to cut my clothes up, and I used to cut t-shirts up, and cut t-shirts into like strings. I mean, I was quite a glamorous child. Yeah, I think that's my advice. Buy magazines, read about fashion, follow fashion blogs, fashion Instagrams, and start drawing. If you can think about mixing two things together, that's a great place to start. You can take someone that you think's your biggest icon, and then someone that you think is really badly dressed, or a geek, or someone that you would say that's not very cool, and then try and push their styles together and see what you come up with. That's how you create something completely new.
That's brilliant. And oh, here we go. Another question. How important are transferable skills in your industry?
Oh, gosh. Transferable skills within the industry? I'm trying to think kind of what that means.
So I suppose they're sort of asking, how important is it to have, I don't know, say, for example, confidence or communication skills or teamwork, and being able to sort of take them from one career and perhaps move them into other industries such as fashion?
Yeah, I think definitely, hugely. I think being a confident person is going to definitely help. I mean, there are shy people in fashion, of course there are, but it obviously helps if you can, talent talks at the end of the day. If you're really talented, it's fine. But I hired maybe a couple of hundred people while I was at All Saints, and the people who, they can walk in the door, and then within 3 seconds, I know if they're the right person for the job, because it's something you put out into the world. It's a kindness. I like kind people, friendly people. You could be so talented, but if I don't want to work with you because you're not a very nice person, I'm not going to give you a job. And I think especially when you're starting at the bottom of any career, do you know what? I wrote down some notes, and the first thing I wrote down, because I was like, what advice would I give, young people? Because I've done conversations like this before. And I don't know, I've never written it before. And the first thing I wrote down was, right, say please and thank you. It's really fundamental. But how lovely if you're in your office and everyone's thank you, please, or would you mind doing this for me? Oh, that would be great. I'd love to. I'd love it when people are like that, not like, oh yeah, all right, I'll do that. Yeah, like there's 100 people out there that want that job. It's it can be a real privilege. So I think that's a little bit of advice. So a transferable skill is fundamental.
That's brilliant. Thank you. And what's one thing that you wish you knew sort of when you're starting out in the industry that you know now? What's your thoughts on that? And then we'll come to that question. Something
I wish I knew. Let me think. Maybe know your worth is quite a good one. So I went for my first ever job interview, was advertised at £13,000 a year, which is very low, really. I mean, everything's relative, so it was a low amount of money for my graduating field. But when I started the job and went to sign the first contracts, they dropped it to 11,000 just because I was young and they didn't think I would fight for it, and I didn't, because I just wanted the job. And I think you've got to know your worth. You know, we are smart, fantastic people. We are, you know, just our time is worth money. So don't let anybody try and trick you.
Good advice. And I'm going to come to this question to finish. So, is photography as an A-level creative enough to get into fashion design, along with textiles, because my painting skills aren't too good?
Absolutely. It's a fantastic place to start. If you're doing I mean, in fact, there's loads of jobs within fashion photography. It's, you know, there's as many fashion photography jobs as there are fashion design jobs. So, you know, if you wanted to do photography, fantastic. You could be the person who's doing the front cover of Vogue, but you could also, every single website you go on, from ASOS to any shop you might use, all of that is shot by a fashion photographer. Every single fashion company has a lookbook every year. So there's a lot of jobs. And in terms of not being able to paint or not being able to draw, totally irrelevant. I cannot tell you how irrelevant that is. I am not a good drawer. You find a way around it. You know, drawing wasn't my thing. So for my GCSE, I did stained glass. Got the A. You know, I went to fashion school. You know, did very well at fashion school and couldn't draw. I didn't need to be able to draw. I could, you know, there are other ways of putting yourself out there. And if it's not fashion or art you want to do, yeah, drawing and painting aren't it. You can do so many creative things with. I can't see something in my mind and then put it on paper, but all of my work is done on a computer. So I found almost like a crutch, I suppose, to support my failings. But it really doesn't matter. And somebody told me this when I was at university, and I didn't believe them. And I had confidence issues, really bad confidence issues. And I can now tell you that they were right, and I am right.
That is good advice. Thomas, I'm going to end it there. Thank you I mean, we could go on for hours. I love this conversation. But huge thank you for joining us on Careers and Coffee.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. So, folks, that was Thomas Driscoll-Evans talking to us about his amazing career. I've learned so much. I was already conscious beforehand in terms of what to wear. So we've saved that. So huge thank you for Thomas joining us. Careers and Coffee every Tuesday and Thursday, 4:30 to 4:50. We're looking forward to seeing you next week. Thanks.